CompTIA since the last 12 years now. We started the CompTIA business in India in 2011, and it has been a great journey. So part of my job is actually to work with various segments of markets around the skill development area. Right from academic institutions, colleges, universities, and their professors and the students and the deans, to the commercial training organizations, how they deliver the training to increase skills of people, and also with uh, corporate organizations, the demand side, where they require manpower, skilled manpower for the various, job roles that are there. And over these 12, 13 years, and before that, another 5 years of work experience in the skill development area, I have seen the IT industry gone through a lot of changes. There have been new technologies. There has been, morphing of multiple technologies, the emergence of cloud as a technology, cybersecurity coming up. So this is a very dynamic field, and I think the crucial part is obviously how do you keep yourself, uh, you know, abreast with whatever is happening in the industry and prepare yourself accordingly. And I always believe that skill development is an ongoing process, and people should constantly uh, sort of invest in skill development. A lot of people say that, investing, skill development or training is an expense, but I always say that anything to, when you are doing anything to, in training or developing your own skills, it is always an investment, because what that gives out is a huge return on investment. When you get something better, when you get a better job, when you get a better skill which you can prove to your employers. So it's been a good experience in the training industry, and I believe that this session is Q&A. So uh, I really don't have any presentation, and I think that is fine. It becomes much more interactive. I can learn a lot from all of you and share whatever I feel or I have seen in the market.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Pradipto. So, let me start this session. Okay. So the thing is that basically these are many students who have registered themselves for basically some kind of cloud certifications for some kind of job opportunities in cloud. Okay. So this is what they are basically asking about. What are the skills that basically they require for getting a good job, or in this current scenario during the layoffs is going on, and many companies are making a layoff. So what about your view about this layoffs and like regarding this, what they'll expect?
See, I don't think you should read too much into the whole, um, this whole thing of layoff and everything going around, because the fact is that this is a corrective action. You will see that every 3 years, 4 years, organizations will get rid of 5-6% of their employees, because what happens is that organizations always, when they plan for business,
Right.
they always overestimate. For example, we are talking a lot about blockchain.
Right.
Everybody is talking about implementation of blockchain in various segments and so on, and there are organizations who have invested a lot in, picking up people, and then obviously what really happens is that reality does not turn into what it is, and therefore the organizations have to shed a little bit of their workforce. So what I would say is that this is just a corrective measure. If you have the right skills, if you have the right attitude of learnability, I don't think you will be touched upon by layoff. Yes, there will be certain situations where somebody will put up something on social media saying, hey, you know what, I just joined, uh, and I have been asked to leave. But if you're skilled, you can get an employment. I mean, the economy is still growing. In fact, I was talking to someone yesterday that on one hand, we talk about a recessive market and sluggishness and everything, and you go to any airport today in India. I was in Ahmedabad airport a couple of days back, and then Vijayawada airport some time back. And all airports are chock-a-block. All the flights are packed. So obviously, people are going for business. And obviously, you will not spend money if there is no return on it, right? So, so don't worry about this. Just focus on the skills right now. And these things will keep on coming every few years. The media will make a hype of it. And then, I mean, now there was about a couple of months, there was so much of halla balu over, there have been, Google has, asked so many people to leave, and Facebook is doing the same, and this and that. And today there is nobody's talking about it. So it's just about a month or so, there's a little bit of correction, and that's about it. So don't focus on the layoff. Don't focus on the negativity or negative side of it.
Right. Thank you so much. And Mr. Pradipto, what should be the corrective measures for the current time, like for getting a placement or like something? Because many of the students are basically sometimes they completed their BTech or masters in basically 3 or 4 years gap, and after that they want to shift to starting their career, because at that time they are not getting that kind of opportunity. So what would be your suggestions for such kind of things?
So, look, first of all, today, when you're looking at a technology career, it is not a standalone domain.
Right.
For example, 10 years back, maybe, there was a software development area, there was an infrastructure hardware area, there was a networking area, there was cloud which was growing on, and all of that. And people could say that, if I am a software developer, I do not need any other skills. But today, one thing that you need to understand is that the IT industry is becoming very interdependent of the various domains within it. So if you are a cloud engineer, you need to understand a bit of security. If you're a security engineer, you need to understand the relevant portions of cloud computing. If you are so therefore we are not calling it hardware, networking, cloud. So as you know, that computing has got two broad areas. One is the infrastructure piece of it, which is the devices and the hardware. And then, of course, you have the cloud as an infrastructure, right? So now, gone are the days when you just say that I am a hardware engineer or I am a networking engineer. What you say here is that, or rather from a skill standpoint, you are supposed to have knowledge of multiple domains, and all together you have, so when you look at it, you will see that there are, on one side, you have the devices and the services, which is, data analytics or cloud. Then you have the hardware, which is the objects, network, sensors, the chips, and the IoT piece of it. There is the software and the connectivity, which connects the, the services and the hardware. And then finally, there are protocols or the rules. So that becomes a part of the DevOps. So all the various departments or divisions are basically talking to each other, and therefore it has become much more interdependent. So one needs to think from a more strategic standpoint. So today's expectation that is there from the industry is more of a generalist than a specialized person. So if you go for a software development career, say, for example, you are a Python and you're going towards the AI ML side, you can very well expect that there will be, if there is an interviewer, they will ask about, what is happening in the cloud world, or what is happening around security and so on. So, because, see, you have to understand that the organizations today, everyone is going through a digital transformation where you are putting in components of, one side is the software and applications, you have the IT infrastructure, you have got the data and analytics, and finally, on top of these three, wrapped around is the cybersecurity piece. And when you say cloud, it obviously is a part of infrastructure. And today and going forward, infrastructure will, move into, it's already been there. So a time will come where infrastructure will be will be equal to cloud. So right now there is a bit of the on-premise hardware that organizations are using, and then you have got a large part of their data and applications on the cloud. However, with the pace as to how hardwares and servers are getting, obsolete. So time will obviously come. I don't know what, it's a 5 years or it's 8 years or 10 years. Obviously, the dependence on the hardware is going down again. So infrastructure will be is equal to cloud. Uh, so therefore, what you need to keep in mind is that a generalistic knowledge about things, whichever domain that you're trying to move into. The other thing that you need to keep in mind is that organizations are not loyal anymore to one brand or a platform, right? So within a large organization, there will be some services that will be running on AWS. There are some which will be running on Google Cloud Platform, some running on Azure, etc. And it will be a multi-cloud, and a hybrid kind of an environment. So what they are looking at, somebody who has a very core competence and foundational knowledge, hands-on, practical, for people who are getting into those job roles.
Yeah, right. Because recently IBM is already having their own cloud, like IBM is Smart Cloud, but they are using the services of AWS. So this is truly said that organizations are shifting towards other clouds also. Thank you. And some as in the recent trends, we are seeing that many people who are basically from non-technical backgrounds are coming to the technical fields, and basically they don't want to go for a coding background profiles. So what do you think? What do you have idea about that? Like basically, can IT industry is having that much capacity that it can accommodate all the technical as well as the non-technicals who are coming in this domain?
See, moving forward, organizations, when they hire, when they are hiring, their evaluation parameter is becoming more and more skill oriented rather than degree oriented.
Right.
Degree orientation is also there. I'm not saying that it is not there today, but there is definitely a large push on skills. And when you're talking about skills, they are transferable skills, which means that this person has got a competence that I can utilize in various different technology platforms. That's one of it. So if you are going into, say, cloud as a technology, I should be able to quickly grasp if I'm asked to work on AWS or Google or Azure or whatever it is. If I'm looking for a cybersecurity engineer, eventually I need to work in a specific tool by, say, Palo Alto or IBM or XYZ. I should be able to be. So one is transferable skills. And the second area that they are looking at is hands-on. So when you say hands-on, the industry has also gone through a lot of change, because one thing that they have definitely cut down is an incubation training, which means that there was a point where organizations used to hire people and put them through to a longish incubation period where they were teaching them a specific technology, and hands-on areas specifically. But nowadays, what they want is a zero-day deployment, which means that the day I'm hiring a workforce, the workforce should return back the money by being productive. So non-technical people from non-technical backgrounds can easily come into technical domain. But what I sincerely also feel is that every technical domain has got a certain amount of prerequisite. For example, if somebody is a BCom graduate, I'm just giving an example, that as a BCom graduate, you want to come into IT, my first question would be that what you have studied as a core, like the commerce subject, can you go into that area? So a BCom graduate getting some technical skills will be better working in a BFSI industry, the banking, and because they understand the core of commerce, and on top of that you get some IT skills, so you will become an IT specialist in a very specific domain like BFSI, right? So you need to plan your career accordingly, and getting into IT is not that difficult as it looks like. Because suppose, like I say, I'll again go back to the example of somebody who has completed the bachelor's of commerce, and they want to get into IT. Then there are two areas that they can get into. One is, say, for example, cloud, because everything, even the banking and financial software, for example, is cloud based. So therefore, if you want to be that, it becomes much more easier being a commercial expert, getting into IT and understand. But when you get into an IT, when you are understanding cloud, you cannot jump the gun. You cannot say that day one I will go for a high level product specific training. You need to have some fundamental knowledge of how networks work, how the network operations happen, or how networking is implemented within organization, because cloud is built on top of that, and then understand a bit of the virtualization piece of it, and then that is where you get into the technical area of cloud. Similarly, when you're looking at cybersecurity, you need to have some basic understanding of operating system and how it works. You need to understanding networking, and then you can get into cybersecurity. And what I feel is that if you are a non-technical graduate, ideally speaking, I would recommend you to stick with your domain. So if you are maybe you have done something in biology, look at IT careers in healthcare, so that when you are competing with a BTech in computer science, what you bring in is a very strong domain knowledge, right? So that is something that I would recommend. I know that it does not happen. It is very much driven by the demand factor, but that is my viewpoint, that one should do that, or one should, kind of try to, achieve that level of specialization.
Right. Yeah, you are correct, Mr. Chakrabarty. And now, basically, the few things come to now. There is a many hype among the candidates who are starting their career, that they don't prefer to go with startups, and sometimes they prefer to go with some kind of brands. So generally, brands having more kind of like limitation, that this is the limitation they require. So what do you have an idea about the India startup ecosystem and about this brand? So where should one need to focus?
See, I am a traditional person. I would definitely put my money into sort of established brands, because the startup ecosystem, while it is very attractive, and that again, it's my personal opinion, and startups are extremely important for the economic growth of any region or any country, right? I mean, even Facebook was a startup at one point, or Google was a startup at one point, right? Which they have become where they have become in the last 2 decades or 3 decades or whatever it is. But individually, look, what you need to understand is the flow of fund. I mean, can the organization sustain me over a period of time? So what usually would happen is that, yes, there are some startups who are, and for that you need to do some market analysis, right? I mean, where you can use that as a springboard to understand, because the benefit of working in startups is that you will get to do more, you will get exposed to more areas, but there is always a sense of little risk out there, because there is a possibility that you are not uh, you are not learnt anything, and all of a sudden the company gets sold, or there is a acquisition which has happened, and they have done away with all the because you need to understand that the mentality of startups, there are two parts of it. One is obviously as a startup, they will say that, my objective is to bring a difference to the society.
Right.
But on the other hand, and it's brutal, and I'm sorry for being so transparent, is that I built
No
up my
problem.
market cap and my brand to a certain extent so that I can sell, earn the money, put it in somewhere else and build up some other business. And that, I believe, is not a very sustainable way of thinking. And that's the reason, if you look from a profitability standpoint, be it an Byju's or an Upgrade or any of these, so much hyped, startups, they're still not profitable. And that is a dangerous way. I believe from a traditional standpoint, a standard, well-established organization where you have a very specific job role and then once you build up your brand, once you build up your individual specific domain knowledge, which you can in an established organization, I think it should be the other way around, that after a 5 year or 6 years of experience, when you have some very saleable strength in terms of your what you can do, the startups will in fact then take you at a much more higher level and give you maybe ESOPs or stock options and everything. So I think, in my opinion, it should start with established companies, build up your skills, build up the heart, and understand the working culture, and then bring that learning to a startup after, say, maybe 4, 5, 6 years of experience in an established organization.
Okay, that's it. So, startups are giving good packages and everything. So, can we start our career with a startups? Is it good to start our career with a startups?
That's what I said. I'll go back to my previous question.
Okay.
I would not go for a short-term gain in
Okay.
a few thousand. So how much of difference will it happen? I mean, say in your annual CTC package, or if you break it down by monthly, 2,000, 4,000, 5,000 rupees difference. And I believe that that is not something that, you can, I mean, again, it's all about personal opinion. And my
Right.
personal opinion is that it's short term, whereas what you need to look at in the kind of environment that we are looking in the kind of fast-paced technical development that are happening around digital transformation, I think you need to build up once you have the generic skills, get into an established company, work in a process, you understand how the whole business works in a larger organization. Rather than doing X, Y, Z, A, B, C in a startup, you specialize yourself in X and bring that specialization back to the startup economy, or even you can be in a better position to start your own company.
Right. Okay. So, and what about your view about the certifications plays an important role in career? Is there importance about the certifications?
Well, see, yes, it is, definitely, because what really happens is that if you go to organizations, how do you differentiate yourself? Is that extra edge that you do by doing certifications. That is one. But even more than that, what certifications bring in is contemporary skills. For example, certification bodies always reflect what is there in industry today as a requirement, not only today, but 3 years down the line, right? So the certifications bodies does a lot of research work in terms of, okay, where the industry is going, because what academic institution will do is try to follow a set of core study or core knowledge points, and it is very difficult for them to change the syllabus. So while that is very important as a completely core values that builds in people, certifications are something that give you an immediate acquisition of skill, and something that is contemporary for the next 3 to 5 years, and therefore you stand in a better position. So yes, to answer your question, certification does have a lot of value in the selection process for a fresh hire.
Okay. And what should be how should, if any candidate who is basically coming from a non-technical or either from a technical and they're starting their career, initially. So, what should be your suggestions about those students or candidates? Like, how can they perform better? Because this is the first time, there are lots of nervousness and lots of questions and many more things. So, what about that?
So I think first and foremost, you need to understand. So today, what really happens is that
Mhm.
people just go by buzzwords. I mean, I want to be a cloud engineer, or I want to be a cybersecurity engineer. I want to go towards AI and ML.
Mhm.
But when I go deep down and really ask them that, do you even understand what a cloud engineer does? Or do
Mhm.
you understand that as what a security engineer or a cloud architect does? In most of the cases, the answer is that they're not aware of it. So first and foremost, what I would recommend is that uh, you need to understand the basic tenets of any job role that you're looking at in IT.
Mhm.
And there are a lot of resources. CompTIA, we have a lot of free resources that help you to understand that, and that help you to understand that if you are looking at, say, for example, a cloud engineer, then on a day-to-day basis, what are the kind of things that you need to do, and what are the kind of skills that are required for you to be that cloud engineer. That can be, for example, that if you are a cloud engineer, what are the top 6 or 7 things that you do? You have to design, maintain, and operate the cloud systems. You have to develop applications. You have to understand the language of business, disaster recovery. You have to learn a bit of, say, computing or programming around, say, Python, Ruby, etc. You need to prevent data loss, and so on. So you need to first understand what are the key, things that are required for a particular job role. And I think that is where most of the mismatch happens, because what you are gunning for is jobs, but not a career. And that is where the frustration comes in. And I would request all your students and career seekers to focus on a career rather than a job. And that is basically where you think that, is it um, is cloud, what is the future of cloud, and is it good for me? I'm not
Mhm.
answering a yes or a no, but I'm
Mhm.
asking all your students
Mhm.
to really do that bit of research in understanding the job roles and understanding where the market is moving.
Right.
And what I can do here is that I'll just put uh, you know a URL on, and just give me a second, I'll put
Yeah,
it on the
please.
chat box. uh, And I feel that this is a great resource
Mhm.
where what we have done is that in a very simple manner, in networks, data, security, and cloud,
Mhm.
we have put in an understanding of the industry and also understanding of uh, job roles. What are you supposed to do in those job roles? So, and it's not only this one resource, but there are many other resources on Google,
Mhm.
on sorry, on internet, where you can find. So my
Mhm.
first recommendation will be, go through the job role, understanding the domain and the subdomain. Do not go with buzzwords. I know a lot of people who had
Mhm.
who spoke about blockchain. And
Mhm.
today there are hardly any employment opportunities in blockchain. We don't know what is the future. We talk a lot about cryptocurrencies, but we know that the government will not regulate it ever.
Right.
And yes, there are some areas, say, for example, somebody who is, again, I'll take the commerce experience, that somebody
Mhm.
who studied commerce and is planning to go to BFSI industry, that is where, or want to be an IT specialist in BFSI industry,
Mhm.
that is where I would say that, okay, if there is somebody who wants to do that, why don't you also put some additional amount of money and do
Mhm.
something to on blockchain? Because um, because the real application of blockchain is actually happening in the banking and financial sector side.
Yeah,
But if
right.
you look at the other sectors, it is not happening. So why even bother to do it right now? Because in any case, you have to be very, you have to do a continuing education. You have to improve your skills every now and then. So
Right.
do it what is relevant at that point in time and what you do. So yeah, again, I mean, what I mean to say is that it is, you need to understand what you plan to do before you invest your time, energy and money
Mhm.
to work around that area.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Pradipto. One question, like suppose during your entire career, being from starting from a scratch till a director position, so if somebody is coming at you for interview, what is your like major point that you are looking in any candidate?
Whether you're open to learning or not, I think that's the first thing, because uh, it's not a yes or no. I would not evaluate whether you know a certain concept or not, but I would rather say that what will be your response. I would rather evaluate a candidate on what would be their response on a question that they do not know or they do not have an idea. How do they tackle that question? And that is where most managers are looking at identifying whether there is a learnability and the motivation level of an employee. Two, this is one. Two is that have a clear understanding about the job role before talking to me, and that really makes a huge difference. And that leads to my the response to my last question is that you need to understand what you plan to do. So, you need to be very specific that, if I'm applying for being a cloud analyst or a cloud engineer, I completely know what I'm supposed to do, and I have gained my knowledge accordingly in that direction. And that will show your motivation and your passion. So today, people, like I said, people do not have the patience to train you in a particular area. They would rather pick up somebody who is passionate, motivated, eager to learn uh, uh, you know uh, particular technology. Of course, I've not been in a technology I mean, I'm not a technologist as per se,
Mhm.
but when I talk to business managers, when I
Mhm.
talk to say for example cybersecurity, information security officers, this is
Mhm.
what they come back. So they're saying that if these three attitudes are there, and there is a fundamental knowledge of the domain that you're working out from a hands-on perspective, then you are good to join. I mean, they don't want people who will work on X domain today and then, oh, I'm not liking it after 6 months and I'll just move into some other domain. That is definitely not an acceptable position.
Right. Right. And Mr. Pradipto, so you are very common because CompTIA is basically US based and you are very common about the international market. So what exactly is going on about the tech career in international market, especially in USA?
Why do you want to even look at USA? Because see, in the next um, many years, I think if it's going to be the APAC market which is going to drive the whole business.
Right.
There is
Right.
no doubt about it. I mean,
Yes.
India will be a driving force. The kind of development that is happening here
Mhm.
will definitely create a lot of momentum and be the growth for the world. I'll just give you a small example that
Mhm.
if you look at the requirement of, say, cybersecurity engineers,
Mhm.
and the gap that is there in the industry, it is maximum
Mhm.
in India. In European countries, it is negative.
Mhm.
Like, they don't need people. It's a negative requirement.
Right.
Whereas in India, it's like 600% year-on-year requirement in gaps, which means that if there are requirement of 100 people in cybersecurity, the market actually has just one maybe or two. That's what I'm saying, 2% or 1%. And there is a gap of that 98% that you need to fulfill. And that is growing in the rate of, few 100% every year, because the development is happening so fast here. And also you look at the innovations. For example, very simple.
Mhm.
Uh, when I travel to US or I, travel to Europe or even advanced economies like Japan, it is amazing that that we use way less cash compared to things that happen in the or plastic credit cards. And today with the with the online UPI and the payments, we hardly spend any cash today. We don't need cash, right? But in US, cash is still the way. A lot of people still pay cash. They are using a lot of credit card. I think China and India in two places. In fact, yesterday I read a news that in China they are using biometrics to make payments. So basically, they will just scan your palms of your hand, and automatically, money will be deducted, or transaction will happen. So the growth engine is definitely Asia Pacific region, India, China, maybe Indonesia, Philippines. Those are the area which is growing. When you talk about US, yes, I mean, I'm not saying that that market is completely finished, but what they are looking at is a lot of practitioners from India. In fact, it was astonishing to see the kind of growth of Indian software or IT specialist moving to Japan. It's mind-boggling. I mean, in fact, from a growth standpoint, I think, in my opinion, in few years, Japan, people migrating from India to as a tech. I'm not saying going there as a white collar job or as a blue collar job, but going there as a tech engineering or technical piece of it, it will be very close to what has happened in the past with USA. And in USA, for example, tech career as a choice for young graduates, it at number 6.
Okay.
People do not want to get into technology because they understand that this is not a future. I mean, they have reached a certain level of maturity in technology implementation, whereas in India, that is number 1, because we have still not reached that level of maturity in terms of, for example, we don't have a product on our own. We don't have an operating system that has come out of India, right? So there is a lot of scope, and I think there is a lot of stress, or there's a lot of importance that is going in this direction in these parts of the world. But yes, so to just a short summary of this question, there is a lot of requirement of people in the US or in Japan or in Europe in terms of technical experts, software, cloud, cybersecurity. That is one piece of it. But on the other hand, there is a very healthy growth opportunities within India as well.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Pradipto, one last question from you. What are your suggestions for all our candidates who are taking part for this placement cycle? So what are your suggestions about that?
I covered it earlier. I think I will reiterate it again and again, is that understand what you need to do. And that requires a lot of data. Your decision of choosing a job or a career, whichever way you want to term that, should be data driven, analytics driven, rather than word of mouth or buzzword driven. So focus a lot on understanding what is happening in the industry, understanding what are the requirements are there in the industry, and understanding what you would want to do. And for that, you need to evaluate multiple job roles and say, okay, this is what a cloud engineer does, this is the market. This is what an IoT engineer does, this is the market, and this is how it is growing ahead. And then plan your career accordingly.
All right, Mr. Pradipto, thank you so much for this session and guiding us and giving your valuable mentorship to our candidates. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here, and all the best to everyone. And thank you, Coursry, for giving me this opportunity to speak to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pradipto. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, guys. So I think session is over. Any questions?